Well, welcome to the first ever Borderlands podcast. I'm calling it DFL before DNF. It's kind of been the thing that sort of like the call of me and the audience. Like we'd rather finish last than quit. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, it's like I'm trying to make it be like a prophecy for me because that's not been my mentality. These interviews were kind of born out of this episode 3 of Trail Grit. So Trail Grit is my story going back to the 100-miler. That it's, I'm obsessed with the 100-mile distance. I'm a crazy fan of the elites. Yeah. I love watching. I mean, I was in Chamonix this year because I wanted to be there when America got, the men's finally got a men's win after 4 or 5 women winning, and so I just wanted to be there because I love it. And so then that made me feel like, hey, I'm a competitive person. I'm athletic to some degree. I can do this. And really, I just have not been able to do it. So I've tried it 8 times, and I have only finished one of the 8, 12% finish rate. I think I'm the worst in the country. I haven't found my equal. But right now I'm on this journey to talk to people who have finished really hard races and to just try and understand how you keep going. So this is not really about my audience at Borderlands. This is truly for me. Like, I want to know how you did it, what you've done. And so Elsa Jaworski, you started Women of the Wasatch with some other women?
I helped start it.
Okay, we'll get into that. Mm-hmm. So you're part of Women of the Wasatch. Mm-hmm. You ran Tahoe 200. You've run the Buffalo 100, among other races that we could find on Ultra Sign Up, which is where I look today. But I'm just super impressed with your presence online, what I've seen of Women of the Wasatch and watched clips of you at Tahoe 200 and coming across, like Allie Kolaski, a mutual friend. So first, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Can you give me a little bit of a background on you just as a person and you as a runner, just kind of like where those two things come together?
Yeah. So my family got started running pretty much since day one. My mom was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in her late 20s. And at the time, the American Diabetes Association was training for the London Marathon. And so she had no background in running at the time.
What year would this have been?
Oh, God, like 93, maybe.
Okay.
Like before my brother was born.
Got it.
Or maybe a little bit later. And anyways, so my parents started running, or my mom started just training with this group, and they went out to London. She ran it, and then my dad, he jumped on board too to support her. Mm-hmm. And then so I grew up with my parents traveling all over, not just the U.S., but like the globe, to be able to do marathons.
Really?
Yeah. So London, I think they've done Berlin.
And this was their hobby?
Yeah.
I mean, it was part of the other like cause, but it was hobby. Well, they weren't pro runners.
No. Yeah. Like if anybody looks at my mom's times, I love you, Mom, but she's not a pro athlete.
Probably a lot like your mom.
Yeah. And so they got started on that, and then it kind of transitioned into marathons and then triathlons, and they do Ironmans. My brother ran collegiately, so running has always been a part of our family.
What distance collegiately?
He did 5K, 10K.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
so he was like truly long distance runner.
Okay.
But I thought partying was a little bit more fun in high school, so I stick to that route.
Yeah.
And so I ran while I was in school, but just for fun. Okay. Got into marathons when I was in college, selfishly because I knew my parents would
fund it.
Yeah, fund the adventure elsewhere.
Yeah, that's cool. So what marathons have you run?
I've done 3 road marathons now.
Okay.
So my first one was in Ventura, California.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then New Orleans, and then I just did Big Sur recently.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Big Sur with your parents?
Yeah.
Nice. That's
so
great.
They were doing it for JDRF, which is a diabetes group.
Okay.
So another one funded by the parents.
Okay, so you're running road marathons, or you're enjoying running. You're in college. Mm-hmm. Where'd you go to college?
University of Georgia. Go Dogs.
The Dogs. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes. You never have to wonder.
Yeah. Go Dogs.
Okay. So you're there. You're running. You're into it. When did you leave the road for a trail?
Yeah. So in school, or when I was in college, it was always road, just because there wasn't really any other option. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's more trails in Athens or northern Georgia than I think that there are at this point. Yeah. And then I was in Jacksonville for work out of school, and Meredith Johnson, who founded Women of the Wasatch, I followed her on Strava at the time, and she was out in Salt Lake, and I really just wanted to get out of my job, get out of Florida, and ended up getting a job in Salt Lake of all places.
Okay.
And so I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I got this job. How do you like Salt Lake?
Huh.
You know, what should I know?
What year was that?
This was 2020. So summer of 2020.
Recent. Okay.
And she called me. She was like, you have to move here. It's amazing. So that's all it took.
Nice.
You know?
Yeah.
Easily influenced.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you end up moving out here, and then is it like, let's start Women of the Wasatch, or let's turn it, turn the volume up on Women of the Wasatch. Let's do more with this, or like what happened when you first came out?
So the day that I moved here, she took me for a trail run in Brighton, and I have like not been trail running before.
Yeah.
And I'm still in like road mentality. I'm like, you can drop me, it's okay. She's like,
Yeah.
no, we walk and we eat. I'm like,
Yeah,
this is awesome.
It's like
Where
partying.
has this been? Yeah.
It's like your partying lifestyle meets running.
Yeah. Shots of Fireball. I'm like, this sport is amazing.
Yeah.
So pretty much I'd like to say from that moment on, I was like, no looking back. It's like, why would I care about pace? When people ask you like, what was your time? It's just because they're astounded that you were moving for 12 plus hours. Nobody's like converting it to miles in their head.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say that was August/September of 2020.
Okay.
And then she founded and I helped her get Women of the Wasatch off the ground.
Okay.
Which was October. Halloween is our birthday, so October of 2020.
Yeah.
So a couple months later, she had the idea. She's like, I think we should start a women's trail running group. I was like, Meredith, you're the only person I know in Salt Lake.
You are my network.
You're the only person I can recruit.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to create a space for women to feel safe and like they belong. And it's been, 3+ years now.
So from my perception of just watching Women of the Wasatch, it seems like massive group runs and parties.
Yeah.
How would you describe what it is?
Yeah. So it's a safe space for women to belong on the trail, or women identifying people. So we've got a Salt Lake chapter, Ogden, Draper, and now Park City.
Yeah, I saw Casey Brady actually. We both know
yeah.
Casey. Okay.
Yeah, Casey's
Casey's
awesome.
done some stuff with our trail teams, and she ran our 50K last year.
Okay, cool.
And I saw she's been pushing the
Park
City chapter.
Park City's just like started not that long ago, and it's just like exploded. I think a lot of people, especially post-COVID, or like even in the midst of COVID, just wanted a sense of belonging and purpose. And so, the group has definitely provided that. So we do weekly runs, but we also do like adventure runs. So we'll go do like Grand Canyon rim trim to rim.
Yeah.
Sometimes just like go hang out at a brewery. A lot of product demos. So initially we had a lot of like shoe brands or athletic
saw
apparel.
Solomon pop its head up a few times.
Yeah, we've done that. We've done Hoka. We've done anybody that really wants to work with us. We try to do as many like local groups too. Like if there's any like food companies or whatever in the area
Wasatch
that want
Brewing.
to.
I think I've seen you have a relationship there.
Yep. So we've done a lot of brewery runs from their tap room.
Yeah.
Just anything that we can be ingrained in the local community. And highlight some local businesses. Just want to exemplify what they're doing and also provide a space for people just to get together and have a community.
And you're opening these other chapters. Do you see Women of the Wasatch going beyond the Wasatch?
I don't think so. Selfishly, I'm like, it should be everywhere.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's gonna stay here. It's enough of a project and undertaking as it is.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of hands and people helping out now, which is much needed.
That's
and
awesome.
really appreciated. But
That's great.
I think for right now, just local to the Salt Lake area.
That's cool. Okay, so you're here 2020 and you get Women of the Wasatch up and going. Have you discovered yet that you are an ultra marathoner at this point?
I think I signed up not too long after I moved here.
Really?
Because Meredith is big into thru hiking, and she had done a couple of, I think 50-mile races at that point.
Okay.
And a handful of the other girls had, that were in WOW were doing, 50Ks or whatever the distance.
Yeah.
And I was running with them on Tuesday nights. I was like, okay, well, if they can do that, like I can do that. We all hang out all the time.
Yeah.
So I signed up for my first 50.
What was your first?
My first 50 was outside of Greenville, South Carolina.
Oh, nice.
And I still think it's the hardest race I've ever done.
Was it like Appalachian Trail style, like just like rooty and technical?
It wasn't super technical. There were a lot of routes.
Yeah.
It was a 5-mile loop that I had to do 10 times.
Okay.
And it started downpouring 15 minutes before the race. And it didn't stop until the last 5 minutes.
Was it cold and downpouring?
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
of course. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, so it was just like muddy and tracked out, and I'm like face planting, especially the last couple laps. And, my hands don't work anymore, and I just like fucking hate life the last, 20 miles, which is over, like almost half the distance.
So you said it was 10 5-mile loops?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is awful.
Yeah, terrible.
I did so there used to be a race here called the North Face Endurance Challenge. It was up in Park City. It was like the mid-mountain route. Oh, it was amazing. It was my first trail marathon. Cool. But the one year I signed up for the 50-miler, and I was, feeling compelled and motivated, and it snowed so much that while we're on the trail, they reroute us and say, rather than the 50-mile loop, you're going to now do 4 half marathon loops in the snow. And so I did 2, and I thought, too young. I mean, I don't. There's plenty of years ahead of me. I'm not going to waste my life on finishing this.
And then that was the last year or something?
Yeah, it was. It
was.
Oh, no. Because they had 2 major, I ran it every year, and they had 2 major years where it was snowed out in a row. And I think they started to fold it. I don't know if that's why, but they started to fold it. And then they even got rid of like the big one in San Francisco. And
dang.
I love that race. Someone needs to bring a race back to Park City.
I heard somebody talking about it once, and they were like, it was one of the best races.
Yeah, it was. Summer. And a guy named Pete, who helps put on Speed Goat up at Snowbird, he was one of the higher ups supporting making that race happen. It's a great race. There was Twisted Fork was up there for a little bit too, and that one didn't work. I don't know why races aren't working out up there, but it's destined.
Permits or something.
Will Women of the Wasatch ever put on races?
We'll see.
You should take over the Mid-Mountain course.
Yeah. If it's easy, send it our way.
Okay. So you sign up for your first distance further than a marathon. At what point did you, how much further was it in the future that you signed up? Was your first 100-miler Buffalo?
Yeah. So about a year later. So I moved here in August, September of 2020. My first ever trail race was Buffalo 25K. Okay. Antelope 25K.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. And then shortly after that, I think I did 25K, 50K out there, and then this race in South Carolina a month later. So all this spring of 21.
Yeah.
And then spring of 22. So Antelope 100 was my first 100.
Okay.
About a year and a half after moving.
I saw your time somewhere around 21 to 22.
I think right around 22-ish.
I mean, that's a wonderful time. And did you go into it with an expectation of hey, I'm going to you just kind of went out here we go.
No idea. Yeah. I feel like for so much of this stuff, there's so many unknowns, especially when it's, the distance is far and you've never pushed yourself that hard, mentally, emotionally, physically.
Was that your first time to go from a sunset to a sunrise? Well, you did maybe even see the sunrise, did you?
I did see the sunrise.
You did, okay.
No, I did Rufa that year.
Okay.
And I was signed up for the 24, doing it with a friend of mine, and we only wanted to do 6 laps of the 24. That was the minimum that we were going to do. And we finished 6, and we both looked at each other. We're like, all right, let's go home.
Yeah.
So that was my first time, I think, running through. But I feel like it counts, but you start at night. So it's a little easier to get the sunrise.
Yeah, to see what that feels like.
Yeah.
All right, so you have a great result by all measures at Buffalo. And then you, most people, I think at that point, maybe do a couple of other hundreds. There's a lot of 100-milers who are eyeing that 200-mile distance, the destination races, or now Cocodona. They're looking at those, but they do 100, and then maybe they do a few more before they go there.
Yeah.
From what I could tell, you went from Buffalo to Tahoe.
Yeah.
So you went from a 100-miler straight to a 200-miler.
Yeah, I did.
Why?
Yeah. Looking back on it, it sounds ridiculous, especially because Buffalo is I think 8,000 or 7,000 feet of vert. It's really low.
Yeah, 6. Six.
Yeah. Hey, I'm giving myself a little bump here. I was supposed to do. Well, actually, that's not really true. I'd signed up I had done Antelope, and when I finished Antelope, I was really hoping going into it that I was going to be one and done and be I'm glad I did that. And I finished it and I was like, fuck, I loved that. I know. I was like, shit, I'm going to spend all my time doing this thing. Yeah. So I I was signed up for Rufa and I actually wanted to like go for the 24-hour.
Yeah.
And then I did that and I was just like hungry.
How'd you
at
do
that
in
point.
terms at that Rufa? Do you remember?
Yeah, I did 11 laps.
Oh gosh. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, super fun. I had great conditions though. Last year, I mean, the snow was incredible. So
Yeah.
like it helped just to be able to like fly down. The
Oh,
descent.
interesting. Okay. Okay, that was the last Rufa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, February of last year, of our crazy snow year.
Got it.
And at that point, I had been wanting, I don't know why. I think I had a friend of mine who had done Cocodona, and it all just like seemed awesome. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try. Originally, I was looking at Bigfoot, but I had a friend crew, and they're like, it's really hard. It's kind of remote.
I've heard, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, maybe not. So I signed up, and I got on the wait list for Tahoe. And I was like 39th, I think, on the wait list.
Yeah.
And I had put on the Facebook group, like, you know, what are my chances of getting off? Because like Bear and I feel like Wasatch too, if you're, I don't even know, like 200 or something on the wait list, you get off for the most part. But somebody had said, you know, I've been 13th on the wait list multiple years in a row and I haven't gotten off. Yeah.
Wow.
So I wasn't feeling super positive about getting off the wait list.
Yeah.
So I actually signed up for Scout 100 up in Pocatello.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I, you know, had planned on doing that, was still on the wait list, and then I got off the wait list, you know, maybe a month before Scout.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was like, do I do both? Do I not do Tahoe? And I think it took me all of 5 seconds to accept, you know, my pondering.
Yeah. It's not really pondering.
Yeah.
It's more like posturing. It's more like I'm pretending like this is, I know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And so I actually was supposed to do another 100 before, and I dropped out. I DNF'd Scout.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know. I think I like being outside for as long as possible. And so the 200 just seemed kind of like a party. And, you know, it was another one where I was like, okay, I think if I do this, then I'll, you know, check it off the list and we'll be done.
Yeah, we'll be all over.
And now I'm signed up for Cocodona. So.
No, you are.
Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah.
That's May, first weekend of May.
May 6th.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
That's definitely, I think I would rather do Cocodona than one of the destination, even though Moab is like where my heart is.
Yeah.
Cocodona. I'm a mega fan of Michael Versteeg.
Okay.
And I know he won the first one, and I just watched that happen.
Yeah.
It was that COVID year, I think. And I watched like all 90 hours of the coverage. Like I was like one of 7 people that watched continuously.
One of 2 subscribers.
yeah. To that whole thing. And so that one's incredible. But okay. So now's where I get selfish. Like I want to understand. Let's first start with Buffalo. This is your first time. Let's say you've made the first loop. So 50 miles. So for context, for those who are listening, Buffalo is 2 50-mile loops.
Yeah.
And the first 20 miles is really interesting. And then the next 30 is really flat and long, even on the mountainside.
Yeah.
And it's very runnable. And during the day, it's very enjoyable by and large. And you get to the ranch, and then you come back. You go around like the north end, and then you come back. And then you got to do it all over again.
Yeah.
So even before we get to like how crazy the 200 was, do you remember that like being at mile 50 at Buffalo, knowing that you're about to do all of what you just did again?
Yeah, I trained really high mileage. I like to set at high mileage all the time, but specifically for that, just because I wasn't really sure how it would feel. So I did a lot of like 30-20, 30-20, 30-20.
Like Saturday 30, Sunday 20 kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I felt like as prepared, I think, as one could feel to like know that my body could handle the mileage going into it. A lot of like 70 to 80 mile weeks, I think, for the most part.
Nice.
And honestly, the hardest part, I think, of Antelope was that like flat ranch out and back section, because it was like later part of the day, just hot, flat. Like there's no uphill or downhill to like reprieve your legs.
Yeah.
And I was like struggling pretty hard at that point, but you know, still moving.
Yeah.
When I came back at 50 to head back out, I had an entire crew of like 15 people. My friends had come through.
Yeah.
And there's like boxes of pizza, and you know, I was like, okay, I've got a squad here to like help me change.
That does remind me. Part of your like vibe or ethos is party.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you know, like the dancing videos or whatever. So Talk to me about that. Is there anything practical about that, or is that just like an expression for you? Is there a part of you that knows like, hey, I'm going to be down. Can you guys make sure that you're there to do X, Y, Z?
Yeah. So I think for me, the intention of doing all of these like music videos is the concept of doing even a 50K, right, is ludicrous. This is a stupid idea to be running this far. Yeah. So if I'm going to be paying to suffer, I might as well have a fucking good time, right? And so a good way to keep that at the forefront of the mind is, okay, what ridiculous music video can I make to, you come through the aid station, the volunteers are stoked to be singing and dancing to something. Yeah. And so is your crew. It gives a chance for your crew to kind of interact with each other and be talking about it. Yeah. Because sometimes they know each other, sometimes they don't. Right. So, and then for me too, it's like, okay, it's something for me to zone out during the race. It's like, okay, well, I haven't filmed this one section. So like, let me think about what could I do for that? A good way to kind of like distract myself a little bit from the pain.
Okay. So you come into mile 50, like, so is there a piece of the way that you think about these high mileage races of like, are you intentional with what that 50 mile really is going to look like? Are you thinking, do you like that maybe some of your crew members aren't going to know each other? Is there like a social component to that to you that's like, hey, this is going to be kind of fun. Like we're going to be all introduce this person to this person. And
I think especially in the longer stuff, you see people like all of a sudden your crew has like inside jokes with each other, and you get to see it progress as you come through. Yeah. And for me, like I love community. I love bringing people together. So as I can see that happening as I'm running is like a privilege to be able to see something like that. So I don't know that I really have like an intention necessarily, but when I'm doing these races, almost or every big race that I've done, I've raised money for charity, the charity that speaks to me, and have kind of used this like wow distance as a platform to be able to, it catches people's eye if you're saying you're running 100 miles or 200 miles. Yeah. It's like, oh, by the way, Alzheimer's Association is a great organization. Check them out. Donate some money. So for me, like there are definitely times during, 50 miles in or 100 miles in or whatever the distance is. But I think for me, ultimately what it comes back down to is the reason why I sign up for these races is to, bring light to something that's much bigger than me. Yeah. And so when I remind myself of that or remind myself that I'm supposed to be dancing and having fun or whatever it is, it's so much easier to be like, okay, this pain is temporary, this whatever is fleeting. So let's just like put our head down and remind ourselves that we're here for, a greater purpose and just keep it trucking.
So, okay, put that in context of Buffalo. You leave mile 50, like you've got this energy.
Yeah.
How long does that energy stay with you?
Buffalo was nice because there's a lot of crew access aid stations. So I was able to see them pretty often, and I had pacers. I had 4 pacers for the last 50. So I was getting a new person, so like some new blood pretty frequently, which, different conversations, all of that kind of stuff makes it go by a lot faster. Yeah. I think the highlight of the race, I'd say honestly, like it lasted a long time. I was an aid station probably like maybe 10 miles most from 50. I was making music video to Man, I Feel Like Woman. Okay. And I came through the aid station and I was like, I heard the volunteers talking, should we play show tunes? I was like, do you guys like Shania Twain? And I was like, I'm making a music video of this song. And they're like, oh, heck yeah. And so they turn it on and I'm dancing with one of the aid station volunteers. And it's going on for like a minute. And I'm like, fuck, I got to get out of here. Like, I'm going to stay here too long. So my pacer and I are like, okay, well, we'll just take off. So we start running. And I hear, because everything echoes out at Antelope, it's just open. And I hear the like, whoa, from the aid station, like a couple minutes after leaving, nice. Like they're still listening. They're still going. Yeah. And so I think, that energy is infectious when you just have your pacer, but also like for me knowing that my crew is having fun. Yeah. It's like, okay, this is a hard thing to do for a runner, but it's also really hard for the crew. Yeah. So I think just like knowing that they're having a good time and I really try, and it might come off like really corny and really like over the top when I'm doing all these music videos and I'm just being myself. Yeah. But like it's really intentional so that I know that they're having fun because then that keeps me going, right?
Okay. So now if we double the mileage but kind of get into that same spot. So if we're talking there like, I don't know, between 50 and 80 at Buffalo. What was the equivalent in a 200-mile race for you? Like, where was that mileage where there was something like that was like enlivening or something that you needed that gave you energy that you weren't expecting?
Yeah. Cocodona. Tahoe, honestly, I feel so spoiled because both the 100 and 200 like went well, and there were definitely low points.
Sure.
But I was so focused on having fun that it helped like carry me through so much.
Yeah.
I'd say Antelope, like, 50, I don't feel like I really needed like that push. It was probably more like 80
Yeah.
or so, where you're just tired. It's
Yeah.
the middle of the night, right? Like
Yeah.
you just like should be sleeping.
Yeah. Okay, so from that position of positivity, though, did you ever have a moment of like, I'm gonna call it at this next aid station?
Not in the 100. There was no point where I like ever thought I was gonna drop. And I think like going into it, there have been races where I'm like, dropping's not an option. Like going to the start line, like that's not a possibility.
Yeah.
We're crossing the finish line, whether it takes us until the cutoff or if we miss the cutoff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't give a shit what you guys say. I'm
going.
trucking.
Yeah,
I don't need that medal or whatever it is. And so I think having that mindset of like, I'm just finishing no matter the cost, at least for the first one, right? Like, okay, let's get this thing under our belt and then we'll see how we feel from there.
Yeah.
For Tahoe, I'd say I was definitely like a little bit rattled because I dropped out of Scout. And like a month before.
Yeah,
I made
so
it
you
like
had that
40
kind of
miles.
in the back of your mind.
Yeah, which helped kind of fuel me to a certain degree, but also I was like, for some reason, and I know like hundreds are hard no matter the distance, no matter the race.
Yeah.
But I went into Scout thinking that 100 miles should feel effortless. That's how I went into the race.
Yeah.
So when it didn't feel quite effortless,
Yes.
and I took a spill and a couple other things, I had my heart just wasn't in it. I fell and immediately I was like, I'm done.
What
I don't
mile
wanna
did
be
you
here.
DNF at?
At like 40.
Okay.
Yeah. And it still was the right decision. I still
Yeah.
stand by it.
Yeah.
But so anyways, going into Tahoe, I was a little bit more rattled because I was like, God, I like dropped out of 40. Like, how are we going to make it through 200 plus? Like, I knew it was over 200 going into it.
Yeah.
And when I got to right around 100, it was really hot. I hadn't slept. I was like 30 hours in or so.
Yeah.
And I just like felt beat up at that point. And I got down to the aid station. My whole crew was there. And one of the volunteers was like, you know what, just take a nap, sleep a little bit, see if you feel any better. I wasn't like, I'm going to drop. It was more like, I don't know that I can keep going. You know, like I can't.
Physically, emotionally?
A little bit of both. Like I knew that I could leave the aid station, but I wasn't sure for how much longer.
How fast were you moving at that point? Like when you walked out of that aid station, was it like 30-minute miles? Was it 18?
Coming into that, I have no idea. Maybe like it was a descent down to that aid station.
Okay.
And then a really big climb after the aid station, of course. Yeah. And so I don't know, probably like 20-minute miles maybe on my way in, maybe slower.
Okay.
And I took a nap and I woke up and I felt even worse. I was like, shit.
How long did you nap?
Maybe 20, 30 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
And so I woke up and I was like, oh God. And, you know, I'm struggling, my body's like struggling to like regulate, and I put my pack on and I'm all of a sudden, I don't really like get nauseous or have a whole lot of food issues, but I stood up and immediately was like nauseous, and I'm trying to move, trying to walk and leave the aid station, and I'm like bent over my poles. And I was like, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
And the medic at the aid station's like, take another nap. You're so far ahead of the pack. Like just
nice. Remind me what mile this was at?
like 98 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. 30 miles in at mile 98. Is that or 30, did you say 30 hours at this point?
30.
30
yeah,
hours.
like 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said you take the second nap?
I take the second nap and I wake up and I'm like, let's fucking go.
Really?
That was all it took. That was all it took.
Okay.
Just getting a little bit of extra sleep. And I'd heard, you know, volunteers or people say that they're like, eat something, take a nap, see what happens.
Yeah.
And so from that moment, it was like, okay, we got this.
Nice.
But that was definitely like one of the harder points. And especially because like, you know, I woke up, I took this nap and I was like, I feel like garbage. And I have over 100 miles left to go.
Yes.
the furthest distance I've ever done, I have
Double,
more
you're
than
gonna
that.
double that.
Yeah, I have to do it again
Yeah.
with way more vert.
Yeah. Okay. So go back into that moment. Like, how do you, or do you process that or make sense of that in the moment? Or do you, block it out?
Yeah. There's a couple of things. One, they're really fucking expensive.
Oh, good point. Like, how much are they? Like $1,300 or something?
Yeah. So financially,
I'm
I was
gonna
like,
finish.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this was like a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a small piece of it, right? The second piece, and I think this is the biggest one. I had so many people come to the race. And Tahoe is not necessarily like super easy to get to. It's definitely more accessible than some other races.
Sure.
But I had people flying from other races the same weekend.
Oh, wow.
My parents came, they live in Florida. I had other people driving in because they thought that I could do it. Mm-hmm. I was like, these people believe in me. Mm-hmm. So I should believe in me too.
Yeah. That's a good perspective. I've had people fly in and like, it's like, I can't. Like, I don't think I can.
Yeah.
But to think of that they're there because they believe in me is really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
As opposed to they support me. Those are two very different things.
Yeah.
Support me, yes. But they believe in me. They think I could, they're here, they're here for a finish.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So that was definitely, a component of it. And then I think the last piece is, I then also like break it down into like manageable chunks, right?
Yeah.
So I was able to hike Kilimanjaro years ago, and you have to do it with guided porters.
Okay.
And I spent some time talking to the main guy that I was with, and I was just interested how they different nationalities, how they would work with people from different countries, and what kind of motivation techniques they use for different nationalities. Americans, they needed to be coddled the most.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. But what he called it is it's just a small piece of cake is what he called Kilimanjaro. And I've for some reason that's never left me. And so any moment that things get really dicey or difficult or hard, I literally in my head repeat with each step just a small piece of cake. And I just keep doing that until I'm done saying it.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is 4 hours, So I think for me, if you can try to compartmentalize and chunk them down, then all of a sudden you've moved, maybe it's a mile, and that's a mile further than you thought you were going to make it.
Yeah.
And now you're 1 mile closer to the next aid station, and that quesadilla is going to change your life.
Totally. All right, so maybe to land the plane here, which you just sort of did that, but I wonder if there's anything else. So we look at Buffalo, Scout, Tahoe 200, and now aspiring to do Cocodona 250. Mm-hmm. So I'm asking for it. So sometimes I can feel presumptuous, to offer advice. When I'm asking for it.
Yeah.
I want to. So I'm doing Zion in April.
Okay.
I love it. I love the desert.
Yeah.
That's why I'm either eyeing, someday Moab 240 or Cocodona. Love the desert. So there's going to be this moment for me. It's inevitable, so long as it's not like the touch of rhabdo that I've had with gout or whatever. Mm-hmm. Let's assume, and this is one of the hardest parts. This is some of my other interviews with physiologists will be let's assume that that if you push through the pain, that you won't be permanently injured.
Yeah.
So that's the assumption. What's your advice for someone or for me to say when you get to that point where you just think you're done?
Yeah.
Here's something for you.
Yeah. I think step one is before the race begins, it's saying not finishing is not an option. For me, if I go into it with that mindset, it's it doesn't matter if it takes me the full time or it takes me past the time.
Yeah.
I'm going to cross the finish line or the proverbial finish line.
Yeah.
So I think the attitude shift of just it's happening.
Yeah.
I don't care what happens. I don't care the pace. I don't care about anything that transpires once the race begins.
Yeah.
I know that I'm finishing, and that can feel really scary, especially if you feel like your training's not there. But you've done 100 before. You've done hard things.
Yeah.
I am capable of hard things.
Yes.
Done. Check. You've got it.
Yeah.
So I think the mindset shift to start is, at least for me, is huge. And then I'd say second is, and everybody has their own why of why they do it.
Yeah.
But if you have a way and different like tricks or tips that you can use to remind yourself of that during the race. So for me, it's cartwheel. It's, dancing with my crew. It's making a music video of like what I want the most from running, or my why for running, is to make it seem accessible to everybody, that everybody can do it, everybody belongs.
Yeah.
So if I can show people that you can like make a silly music video while you run 100 miles, like you belong out here too.
Yeah.
And like have physical ways to implement that while I'm running, then it's like, oh, okay, well, of course I'm going to finish 100 miles because like my why is right in front of me and is like so visible.
Yeah.
And then I'd say get some really good friends. So, the people who are going to be like, okay, shut the fuck up. You're going to keep going, like stand up, eat this Oreo, and like one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Well, good luck at Cocodona.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you coming out and doing it. And we'll follow along with Cocodona. Hopefully you get there, and then hopefully I finish Zion. But if I don't, even though I plan to, it won't be it won't be your fault.
Oh.
It'll be my fault.
You got it.
God got it. All right. Hey, thank you.
Yeah,
All right,
thanks.
See you.